Hello everyone, this is Mike and this is Asphalt Nomads. I don't know if there's anybody out there who's interested, but we are going to answer any and all questions regarding Skoolies and anything else that you may want to know about. School bus conversions are not exactly a by-the-book type of thing, so it's very easy to get lost in the process. It's very easy to not be sure where to begin. So if you have any questions, bring them in, bring them up, and I will do what I can to answer your questions. I will be here for as long as possible. So we can we got people watching. Hello everyone. So if you have any questions about Skoolies or Skoolie related problems, conversion problems, if you're planning on doing something in particular with your bus, if you haven't bought a bus, maybe you're thinking about buying one, don't know where to buy one, don't know how to get insurance, whatever your question is, drop it into the chat. Hello Eric O. Hola Eric. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the very first live episode of Asphalt Nomads. And you're from Central Florida. Cool. That's where we are right now. I hope definitely let me know where you're at. If I see that there's more people joining the channel right now as we speak. So you know, let us know where you're calling from and where you're typing in from. And again, this is the first time we've done a live stream chat. We've tried to answer questions on Facebook and we've tried to answer questions everywhere else. Jim from Sarasota, how you doing? Happy Sunday to everybody. So I don't really know how this is going to work out. Katy is busy right now. She's out with family, and so I decided this would be a great time to test things out. She might definitely join us for a live show soon. Let's see, Laura Hutchinson, how long have you been living in the Skoolie life? From St. Louis. Well, we bought the Skoolie in February of 2016. We actually moved into the Skoolie full-time. Well, I moved into it in July. I like to brag about that. Katy, it took her a month longer to sort of separate herself from a brick and mortar home, but she moved in August, and so in August of 2016. So it's actually we are actually at about a year. We maybe a year and a week since we've been living full time in a school bus, and it's great. It's different. It's not always the best situation, but it is an interesting situation. It's always, every day there's something different, and it's a lot of fun. And we have more people joining us. So for those of you who have already joined us, and I've said this a couple of times, just you know, this is our first time. This is my first time doing a stream, so I'm not sure if this would even work out. But if you have questions, if Eric, Jim, Laura, if any of you do any of you have a bus, let me know. Let me know if you have a channel, if you have your own Skoolie project out there, if you have pictures or anything like that that you would like me to bring up. I'm more than happy to do that. Oh, we have a question from Jim. Mike, what was the hardest thing that you went through giving up all your stuff that you had before moving into the bus? The hardest thing, I grew up in a house full of books. We had books everywhere. We had rooms with books. We had books in the living room. We had books in the kitchen. My mother is a huge avid reader, and throughout my life we've been surrounded by reading material. If you know, daily newspapers, books everywhere, and in a school bus that's a little difficult. I have gone through 2 rounds of selling books, of just either selling them on Amazon or giving them away to friends. Katy also had a large book collection. She had an actual really interesting cookbook collection that we ended up sort of saving at my mother's house. So right now my mother has a large number of our books. So that was the hardest thing for me personally. For Katy, I know that the hardest thing was her collection of clothing. Katy has a particular fashion sense, and she likes not expensive clothes, but she likes the variety in her clothing, and so there was some paring down that had to happen. So that was, for each of us, probably the hardest things to give up in terms of stuff. But there's something that happens when you move into a tiny house or a school bus situation, and that is that you tend to every time you go to the store and you're about to buy something, the first question that pops into your mind is, well, where am I going to put this? And we never had that situation when we lived in an actual house or an apartment. Now, even buying a coffee mug from a souvenir shop, we have to wonder, well, does this actually fit in our cabinets? So the question of stuff is actually a very important one. James, welcome. James from Central Florida, but in Kentucky right now, thinking about buying a Skoolie. I highly encourage it. We do have a video about, why you should not buy a Skoolie. The reality check video, if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It is important for people to know what you're getting into. Laura Hutchinson, any suggestions on what year, engine, or transmission when searching for a bus? Ooh, that's a really good question. Let's see. Okay, in terms of what year, our bus, when we bought it, was 20 years old. This is 1996. So 1996, so it's 20 years. The age of the bus is probably less important than the mileage on the engine, the engine hours, and really, and the mileage. Then you have to think about. So our bus had about 350,000 miles, which for a car is a lot, but for a diesel Navistar engine, 350,000 miles is just broken in at that point. We definitely expect to get another 200,000. So in terms of year, you are always going to look for most of what you're going to find is at least 20 years old. Anything older, if you're getting into 30 years old, you're really looking into a true conversion and restoration project more than a conversion. And anything younger than 20 years, you're going to pay for that youth. I would say if you were to find a school bus with less than 200,000 miles, you're definitely going to pay a premium for that school bus. So age is not so much an issue. Transmission, make sure that it runs. Make sure that it turns over, that it moves. As far as what else you can tell, I know that from my experience, there wasn't a lot of information. Usually when you buy a Skoolie, you'll do it through an auction, and so if you're buying through an auction, you only have the information that's available to you through that auction. If you buy through something like GovDeals, you'll know the school district or the municipality or whoever it is that's selling the bus. It'll be listed there, and that's a good idea to just give them a call and ask them questions about the listing. Try to find whoever placed the listing or whoever's in charge of managing those listings, and see if you can get any background information before you bid. However, you're not going to know much about the transmission unless you see it in person, I think, and actually turn it on or you find somebody who's actually driven it. But that's a really good question. How do you buy a bus, or how do you find a good one? Definitely, if you buy through GovDeals, you will be buying from government agencies, municipalities, school districts, etc. So in that case, they should have a record of maintenance. Any fleet vehicle that's part of an actual fleet, not from a private user, not from a private seller, but actually being bought from a county or municipality, you should be able to get the maintenance records. And so and you can ask if you're going to get if you can get the maintenance records before you bid. Just give them a call and see if that will come with the bus. And usually they'll say yes, or they'll give you whatever they have, because there's no reason for them to keep it. So you can usually get your hands on it. However, I would expect that we bought our bus for $3,000. Think about that you might spend another $1,000 or $2,000 fixing it up. We did not have to. We were lucky, but I would expect to make that a consideration. That whatever you spend on the auction, save another $1,000 or $2,000 for quick maintenance in case it's not running at the best performance. So once again, well, we're 10 minutes in. That was sort of quick. So we have right now, by the way, the pictures that you see on the stream right now, this these pictures that are scrolling through, this is from our trip to South Padre in Texas, and that was this past May. We had a really good time. It was sort of our sort of saying goodbye to Texas. We'd been in Texas at that point for almost half a year, and so we wanted to see as much of the state as possible. So this was sort of right at trying to make it down to the farthest bit of Texas that we could reach, and so we made it all the way through the sand dunes of South Padre. So if you have any questions, drop them in. People keep asking about insurance, and I think the last question that I saw on Facebook was about whether we were planning to visit, or we were planning to go up north. So some of you know that we've been mostly in the south, Florida, Texas, and everywhere in between. Some trips to Arizona and New Mexico. But we are planning to go up to New York. Katy and I got married in New York City, and so we are planning to go up there in December to celebrate our anniversary, and most likely we plan to continue north into Canada. We haven't planned out how we're doing it or what the details will be at this time, but that is what's coming up in the future. And so we hope to have this whole travel video, travel log that we'll put together about all the places between here and New York and all the places throughout Canada that we'll be visiting. I know that the travel log videos, our videos at least, we find them difficult to do. There's a lot of things going on, but they don't do as well as our how-to videos. But I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to do a very long run trip across the country. Going north and then west across Canada. I think that'll be a challenge, and I'm looking forward to it. If anybody in the chat do any of you have a Skoolie project that you're working on? If you would like me to plug it, if you want to drop in your YouTube channel or your website for your Skoolie project, definitely throw it in there in the chat, and I will highlight it as I can. And also, if you have an answer, if you have a comment on somebody else's question, feel free to drop in and just give your own opinion. Nobody's an expert in this Skoolie lifestyle thing. Laura says, love the color of your bus. Thank you. That is seafoam blue or something. I don't really remember. Sea mist blue or something. Are you guys completely off the grid? No, we are not. We want to be. We have found that we are definitely limited by not being completely off the grid. We want to do a full solar setup, and we have worked our electrical box to be able to fit in the inverters and all the necessary bits to put in a solar system, but at the moment we just can't afford it. And because of where we've been traveling to, which has not been off the beaten path areas, mostly we're staying at this moment in the southeast, east of the Mississippi, and then in east and north central Texas. And so these areas are well built up. There's electricity everywhere, and electricity from the grid is fairly cheap. It's not a it compared to the, say, $2,000 to $3,000 that we would need to put together a solar system. Our electric bill and this is staying at KOA camps. An entire month's electric bill in the middle of winter, when we were using electric heaters, was $68 was the maximum that we paid for electricity. So even if we were using the maximum amount of electricity over the course of a year, we would still not pay off a solar system setup for years to come. So that's why we don't have that. And also water. We do have some water tanks. They're not great, so we tend to plug in the water. And like I said, if you stick to RV parks and built up areas, and if you know people that have property and you can plug into their house, you don't have to be completely off the grid to have electricity and water. Other than that, we've definitely camped out, boondocked without electricity or water, and it is a little uncomfortable, but we have shelter, and we always carry potable water with us to drink and to wash hands and so forth. So if you can do without the electricity, then technically we can be off the grid if we wanted to. Thank you, Laura, for that question. Luna Skoolie RV, and Dennis Woods also says check out Renogy. They have come down a little since I got it. Renogy is that's solar, right? That's the solar system, Dennis. And Luna, I hope that maybe I can bring up your channel up here. Let's take a look at what Luna has going for her. I imagine that you have some images of your project, so maybe we can all look at them. There we go, Luna Skoolies. And let's see if I can bring this into the screen for everybody to see. There we go. And so let's try to bring this in. And let's see, Luna, and there we go. So this is, and I'm gonna post this right now. So this is Luna Skoolies project, and it looks really interesting. Nope, that's not it. That's it. There we go. And Luna Skoolies RV, you have looks like you have a number of videos here. Let's take a look. That looks like a really interesting setup. I like the clean design. I'm going to lower the volume here, and let's get to the Skoolie itself. That looks very nice. That's really good woodwork, paneling work there. Let's see, are you doing... Oh, that's interesting. It looks like you might be doing the kitchen in the back of the bus. Is that... Am I getting that right? Well, definitely Luna, you've earned a subscription from me. So looks like you have 11 subscribers. Let's make that 12 today. So good luck with your build. Looks like good work. Yeah, work. Very nice. And let's look at the chat there. I hope this isn't confusing anyone. There we go. All right. So that was an interesting project from Luna. I would like to hear more about that. Check the last video. I will definitely. Everybody who's in here, definitely go check out her stuff. You know, one of the things with doing this type of project is that you know, that everybody who doesn't have a schoolie wants to tell you what to do, and everybody who everybody who wants a schoolie, you know, wishes you the best, and everybody who doesn't have a schoolie thinks that they know the best way to do things. And so you will get a lot of unsolicited advice. Whatever you decide to do, I wish you all the luck, and definitely stop by, drop us a message, and ask any questions if you run into any problems. And good luck once again. A question from Jim Moore. Mike, did you guys paint your bus yourselves or have it done? Was it sprayed, and how much? We did it ourselves. In fact, we did not only just do it ourselves, we hand painted it with brush and rollers. So there's about there's 2 layers of finishing coats, right? So and then below that is a primer, a white primer paint that that is over the original yellow paint. So there's the yellow paint, which I try to rough up as much as possible with sanding it down as much as possible. But I do remember that at some point I just got tired of sanding, and I said, forget it, just paint it. And so we primered the entire bus with a latex, it was a bonding primer, which we picked up at Lowe's, and the bonding primer was something like $30 or $40 for the gallon, which I thought was expensive. But the idea of the bonding primer was that we would not need to strip down the paint altogether. The bonding primer was supposed to adhere to the bus itself. And then once we did the bonding primer, you can do any household paint you want. You can. So we did. We picked up a regular. I believe we got the paint from Home Depot, and I think it was I forgot what the Home Depot brand is, but it's whatever it was, whatever the brand was, it was just regular outdoor house paint that we used, both in the white roof and on the rub rails along the sides and the bus itself. Now, the problem with using a house paint is that it will not shine. If you don't have that car glaze, I know there's a word for it, the clear coat, I think, that they use on car paint, you're not going to really get the shine of a car. Also, to do that, you have to do this process of painting where you basically paint a layer, you sand, and you paint another layer, and you sand again, and you paint, and each time you sand, you're sanding with a smoother, softer grit, right? So you start off with something like, I don't know, 200 grit, and you work down to 300, 400, 500, 600, 800, and the more you do that, the better your paint job, the fewer paint strokes you will get, and ultimately then if you cover it with a clear coat, it'll look like a beautifully painted car, right? So it's definitely doable. I don't have the patience for that much sanding and that much detail work when it comes to the outside of the bus, and I don't have the time either, or the space to do a project like that. But as far as the sprayer, we thought about using a sprayer, but the sprayer that we had a leak in it. We ultimately never used it. It was a friend of mine who had one. He offered it to us. We ultimately said we didn't want it. We just painted it by hand. And truthfully, in terms of saving money, I would not use a sprayer. Sprayer is good for saving time, but it's not good for saving paint and money. But you know, if you're good with a sprayer, definitely use a sprayer if you know what you're doing. What is the biggest mishap you have had on the road? Thank you, Laura, for that. Biggest mishap. We broke down the very first week, about a year ago, the very first week that we were out on the road. We drove out to New Mexico, and we were driving through, I can't remember the name of the town, but it's this long run south of Roswell, and it's a I want to say it's Highway 187 or something to that effect, and it's this long run, 4 hours of nothing but very small towns. We had just come out of Carlsbad Caverns, and as we are heading towards Roswell, the engine just stopped. You know, we're in the middle, essentially in the middle of nowhere. We called AAA, and AAA told us that they were going to have somebody out there meet us, and unfortunately we were too far away for any tow trucks or any mechanics assigned with or you know, partnered with AAA to come out and meet us. So we were out there for a good 3 to 4 hours, waiting until finally AAA called back and said, "We're sorry, we can't send anybody to help you." And we were there. People kept stopping, asking us if we needed water, if we needed food. But we were in the middle. We were maybe 2 hours out from any town or city, and so there wasn't a quick fix, right? We couldn't just go somewhere. Also, the bus died in the middle of the road. We were stuck smack in the median, in the middle of traffic, and so not the middle of traffic, we were in the median, so the turn-in lane, I guess. But we were not in a situation where we could just camp out for the night, and we were not in a situation where we could just leave the bus and try to get help somewhere, try to get a ride or hitchhike somewhere. And so it wasn't until the right person stopped, and they happened to be a mechanic, and that mechanic knew another mechanic who happened to know about our engine, and so he showed up, diagnosed the entire thing, and got us, you know, back up and running. But we were basically stuck in the middle of nowhere with very little cell phone signal, too far for AAA to help, and too much of a novice. Both Katie and I just didn't know enough about how to prepare for long trips in a school bus, to really know what to do at that moment. And if it had not been for, you know, just the kindness of strangers, we might have had a much worse time of it. But you know, so far all of our experiences on the road have been very positive. People love to see the school bus, and people, you know, we found everybody to be very helpful. So I don't know if anybody else has a story to share like that. We have not had any accidents with the bus. We have not hit anyone or been hit by anyone, and we do run into a number of bike, like motorcycle gangs out west. Banditos, and a number of other ones, and you know, well, this was sort of our first time being surrounded by motorcycle gangs out west, and for the most part, it's interesting because they're you know, these are people who also sort of live on the road and all that. But it's one thing to know about motorcycle gangs. It's another thing to find yourself in the middle of a West Texas highway and suddenly be surrounded by 200 motorcycles on every side of the bus, as they have just decided to swarm around the bus. And that was it. You know, some of them waved, some of them, you know, look at you like, you know, with a weird face, and then they just keep going. And you know, I would consider a non-event a good event in that case. So we had what other, let's see, I'll tell you something. We had the Border Patrol stop us in outside of South Padre and stop the bus, and sure that they were going to search the bus. I was sure it was a immigration checkpoint, and I was sure that they were going to walk into the bus and start telling us to take everything out of the bus. And instead, it was basically, I got a very stern question of, "Are you a citizen?" And I was like, "Yes, sir." And then that was it. They were like, "Okay, you can go." And so, and you know, that was it. So ultimately, everything's been positive. Eric O, how has your AC unit that you how has it been working? There is someone who stated that they are going to be using the portable AC units which you all removed. Yes. So right now, actually, you know, I'm inside the bus right now. That's the front seat back there. I have the kitchen on this side. That's the refrigerator, and there's actually an air conditioner maybe 2 feet from me, the one we installed under the sink. And the one that's on right now, however, is the air conditioner next to the bed in the back. We found that one air conditioner on its own, and this is a, I believe this was a 6,000 BTU GE window unit. Let me check. It might be 5,000 BTU. But these, so one seems to be good enough. It's got to be maybe 90 something, 92, 93 degrees outside. One air conditioner is doing a great job. I actually have a small fan in front of the air conditioner to blow the air from the back of the bus to the front of the bus. And I'm sweating maybe a little bit, but I'm fat. I sweat. That's what happens. So the ACs are working great. Thanks for that question. If somebody were to use portable AC units, it depends. Okay, if you are in a very humid climate like Central Florida, like Southern Texas or the Gulf Coast in general, a portable AC unit is not going to work. It's just, and in fact, the instructions to the paperwork that comes, the manual that comes with the portable AC unit, will tell you right off the bat that under extreme humidity, and they consider extreme humidity, you know, anything that's not, you know, the Midwest. So under extreme humidity, this AC will not perform. Now, when you consider that, right, a typical window unit, AC unit, let's use that as the marker. A portable AC unit of the same BTUs, right? So if you have a 5,000 BTU portable AC and a 5,000 window AC unit, and you put those two next to each other, the window unit will always be at least 30 or 40% more efficient. Or we should say it the other way around, right? The portable AC one is 30 to 40% less efficient. And that loss in efficiency comes from the fact that it is not pulling air from outside the space, right? So a window AC unit is pulling air from the inside, right? So this is a box. This is a window AC unit. The air from the inside gets drawn in and gets pushed out, right? And it's just a cycle. Inside the bus, the air is cycling through the AC unit. And then outside of the bus, on the other end of that AC unit, there's another airflow. I know that's not the best way to show it, but essentially there's outside air, this inside air, and those two things never mix in a window unit, meaning the outside air cools the coils of the window unit and gets immediately expelled out, exhausted out as very hot air. Inside the bus, it's the air within the bus that is being recycled and cooled. There is never a combination of outside and inside air inside of a window unit. A portable AC, however, is pulling air from the inside, and it's using that same air to cool its coils and to recycle back in. So the air conditioner ends up sort of cannibalizing the same cold air it's trying to push out. It's then cannibalizing it to cool the coils that it needs to cool in order to exhaust the hot air. So it's inefficient, and you end up with this machine that is essentially radiating heat inside of the same space that you are trying to cool down. So anybody who's thinking about using portable AC units, you might have better luck if it's a drier environment, because you know, these air conditioners basically work by drawing humidity out of the air, by drying the air, and so the drier the space, the easier it is. But I am glad that we have our AC units now, our window units, rather than the portable AC units. However, the portable AC units per BTU are cheaper, but you're getting what you're paying for, basically. So keeping things cool and warm, what did you all insulate? What did we insulate? Well, what did we not insulate is a better question. We did not insulate the floor. And that is not an issue except for in the winter time. Having an uninsulated floor, or lightly insulated, we do have it covered with a vinyl flooring, and under that vinyl flooring there is a foam, very thin foam barrier, and under that we have a plastic barrier. Beyond that, there's really, I wouldn't consider any of that, between the vinyl flooring and the metal floor, I wouldn't consider any of that to be actual insulation. And then everything else was insulated, but we did not do a good job. So our ceiling is insulated. We used rigid panels in the ceiling, and that was not perhaps the best thing to use. We should have used something like the fiberglass, you know, the actual fiber rolls. There are a number of other products out there. The best one would have been sort of the spray-on foam or the blow-in insulation. Either one of those would have been better, but you know, we didn't know. We also did paint. Painting the roof does a lot. You could, when we were painting, it was 100 degrees outside, we're painting the roof, and just by touch you could feel that the yellow paint was essentially just a you know, I mean, like, it would hurt if you touched it. It would hurt. With the white paint on, we're using a latex exterior white paint on our roof, and we've also found out that the more layers of the latex we put in, the better it is. And so ultimately, it you know, it's helped a lot. I wish we had done a better job insulating inside the walls and the ceiling, but I don't think it's that bad. James Dukes, I am 6 feet. What are your thoughts on raising the roof? Great. I think there's a lot of great projects out there you can look at. They're on Reddit, our Skoolies. There's somebody just yesterday had a thread posting. There were people posting pictures of how they did their roof races. Racing the roof is not technically difficult. It is a simple project, but it's not an easy project. But essentially it comes down to popping out all the windows, which all the windows actually come out fairly easily, much easier than I think I thought they would. But you pop out all the windows, then you brace the ceiling with jacks of sorts, or what are those things called? Scaffolding. You can use scaffolding to raise the ceiling, or to hold it, and then you just cut a slice of each of the supports of the ceilings all the way around the bus. There is essentially nothing but metal to cut through. There shouldn't be too many wires, if any, on these supports, and essentially it's a very simple project. However, it's a lot of work. It's better to have a place that's level. You will definitely need to have some welding under your belt to get it to work best. The roof is not something that you want to join with nuts and bolts or rivets. You really would want to turn each of those posts as you lengthen them, as you add material to make each post taller in order to raise the roof. You'd want to secure those with really good welds. Having said that, though, you also have to keep in mind that there is a limit to how far up you can go, right? So the interstate rule is sort of 13 feet, I believe, right? You cannot have anything higher than 13 feet, otherwise you'll have trouble with overpasses and so forth. But really, once you get over 11 feet, you might have trouble in many cities across the eastern seaboard, right? Especially in the Northeast, Maine, New Hampshire, places that have very old towns and may have bridges and overpasses that are very old. Places in the South, perhaps Savannah, Charleston, you might run into that. So our bus is 9.5 feet or so tall. We could raise the roof comfortably, a good 12 inches, go up to 10.5, and still I would feel very comfortable with it. I'm 5'10", I fit just fine in the bus. Katy doesn't have a problem with the height, but I could definitely see, if I was just an inch taller, I would want a taller roof. So definitely I would say there's a lot of projects out there, people who have done it, and if you Google it, you'll find a lot of great projects. And like I said, it's not a difficult thing to do. It's just hard work. It's the difference between easy and simple, right? It's a simple project. It's not an easy project, but it's definitely doable. See, Dennis, insulating from underneath is a good idea. Yes. Oh, never too late to insulate floor. Added mine from underneath. 2 inches foam board. Big difference. Yeah, actually these two things go together, right? If you insulate the floor, if you raise the thickness of the floor, now you could insulate from below. I don't know if you mean from under the bus, but if you do raise the floor 2 inches, then of course that's going to cut into your height, which is the actual reason why it's not like we forgot to insulate the floor, is that we were concerned of raising the level of the floor itself too high to where it would become uncomfortable to walk around the bus. So that's really why we didn't do it. But it's definitely possible, and raising the roof is a great way to make sure you have that adequate insulation on the floor, right? If you're going to raise the roof, then you might as well do a really good job insulating the floor, and that really comes in handy when winter comes in, because the bus, the bus sits high on the ground, so all those, wintry drafts that roll around the bus, both when you're driving and when you're just sitting at an RV park, it's just, I mean, the difference between the ambient air 3 or 4 feet, above the floor and next to the floor can be 20 degrees easily during the winter time, simply because we're not insulated on the floor. Another question from Laura: how long do you feel you will live in your skoolie? We plan to have the skoolie for forever. We're thinking that we don't really need to get rid of it unless a situation comes up where we have to get rid of it, right? So where other people might have an RV or sort of, I don't see any reason why we should get rid of the skoolie ever. And for now, we fit. It's great. It works great. If we have mechanical issues of some sort, maybe we will consider getting rid of it, or definitely becoming more stationary, parking it somewhere permanently, something along those lines. But at the moment, we've lived over a year now without rent. I mean, we've our rent is our gas money, basically, and so it's great to know that no matter how bad things may get, that we have a place, we have a home, we have a roof over our heads, and there's no, this isn't a luxury lifestyle, but it's not it's not a bad one either. We've being constantly mobile means that we get to see a lot of things, and we get to meet a lot of people out there, and so maybe if Katie and I have children, then you're talking about schooling, and you're talking about other situations and job prospects and so forth, and so we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But so far, the bus is working out, to the chagrin of her family, I think, sometimes, but we're happy in the bus. That's what matters. So Charlie Kern, Instagram, look at that bus. I'll have to check that out. Do you guys work online / from home? Yes, in different ways, right? So I'm completing my PhD. I've been working on my PhD for a few years now at the University of Texas at Arlington. Katie is professionally, she trained and worked as a librarian, and so Katie has not been doing the library thing. Instead, she's been working online, and essentially we formed a company, and we have various websites and things like that we manage. For the most part, we're making online content, everything from blog posts to photographs and videos and things like that, and then of course there's YouTube. None of these things are good enough to live off on, especially if you're carrying debt of any sort, but it is possible to make a living on the road. It is possible to work online. I spent a couple of semesters teaching online. In 2014, before we bought the bus, I managed to spend 5 months in France, living there, doing research, doing whatever I wanted, while I taught a course in the US. Last year, I was able to go to Cuba for another project, and Katie has joined me in a lot of these trips, and so we have prioritized the experience and the travel lifestyle more than we have prioritized the financial, wealth creation aspect of being an adult. And I say that like it's a dirty word, but yeah, working online is essentially how we're making it happen, and we'll see how that keeps working for us. So far, so good, but it's not an easy way to make money. Elemental says thick area rugs on the floor should help in the winter. A heavy tarp curtain around the bottom of the bus to block the wind would help tremendously. Making one that hooks over your wheels should be easy. Yes, we've been told this before, right? To use a heavy tarp. Now, the issue with the heavy tarp is if you're moving constantly, that tarp is coming on and off, right? So the heavy tarp as a curtain, as a skirt that goes around the bus, I would say it's great as long as you're staying someplace, for maybe 4 to 5 days, at least a week maybe. Otherwise, you have this big, heavy, in our case, our bus is 35 feet long, so 35 feet plus it's about 8 feet plus wide, so that's 35 plus 35, that's 70 plus 16. You're talking about 96 feet of heavy tarp. And so yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's only good for when you're stationary, and definitely when you're stationary, it's good. As Elemental just brought that in to the chat. But also you have to consider if you're not mobile, if you're not stationary that often, it's 96 feet of tarp takes some space. And so that's something that you have to decide whether you want to prioritize. However, I do think that's a very good idea, and I've seen a number of projects. I've seen people do it with Velcro, which I think sounds great, but it doesn't seem to work, in my opinion, as good as it sounds, because the Velcro, the hook and loop fabric will pick up dirt and all kinds of things. But I've seen people do it with snap-ons, with snaps, like fabric snaps. Those snap type buttons screwed onto the edge of the bus all the way around, and then having putting the skirt along the bottom edge of the bus. I've seen that. I think it looks nice, and I think it would work well. Unfortunately for us, it's a little too cumbersome for how we're doing things. Thick area rugs on the floor. We tried the thick area rugs, and there's two problems with the thick area, because which has nothing to do with the area rugs themselves, but the problems are that we have a dog, and we have very little control sometimes as to how this dog, how clean this dog remains. He's just passing by right now. In fact, he is right there. You can see him staring out the window, and he can be somewhat of a mess sometimes. And so we found that the rugs are a problem to clean. We use a lot of laundromats and so forth. And when you have rugs and if something gets spilled on the rug and something, or the dog has an accident or anything along those lines, he trucks mud into the bus. We then have to clean that right away, and cleaning something right away in our lifestyle is a problem, right? We ended up, the last set of rugs, we ended up stuffing them into a large plastic bag until we could get somewhere, and that just made matters worse. So I think, again, the rugs are great if you have if you don't have pets, if you have the ability to wash them. I think those are great suggestions. Thank you, Elemental. Once again, I want to remind anyone who's watching this is the very first stream that I have ever done, and so I don't know what I'm doing. But I hope that you guys feel free to ask any questions you have. I'll do my best to answer your questions, and I hope that we can do this like a regular thing. Maybe I can get to know some of you guys better and so what your plans, and you get to get a little behind the scenes of what we're doing. If anybody out there, I know we have more watchers right now. Anybody out there has any if you have your own Skoolie project, if you have your own, if you want to take a look at something, you know, just, you know, tell us what your project is. Give us a link to your channel. You know, we'll look at it, and you know, maybe we'll all subscribe to your channel while you're here. Let's see. When you get a chance, check out the magnetic attachment system this guy used for his awning. Okay, yeah, send me a link to that if you have that. Go ahead and do that. I think we would all be interested in watching and seeing a magnetic attachment, especially for an awning. I'm actually I want an awning, and this is something that from the day that we got the bus, I was like, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could just extend an awning out and create our own little patio? And so that project has never left the imagination, right? So unfortunately, you know, it's you know, trying to do everything with under a budget is never I don't know, it's never as easy as just imagining how great it would be. But I do want to get an awning up on the side of the bus. Obviously there'll be a DIY awning made by yours truly, most likely with Katy, and we will do our best to make it look good. So we have here, let's see, it looks like we have about 13 people watching. First of all, thank you very much for sticking around, and thank you, Laura, for telling me I'm doing great. Oh, thank you. So Elemental, that's the, you just sent us a let's see if we can check out this channel. Let's see. Redneck awning. I guess that's the video. Let's see. This is now Elemental. This is not your channel, right? This is not your own personal channel. This is just a channel that you liked and you saw somewhere. So let me see if we can check this out. Okay. Okay, so he's doing a trailer conversion. So let's all look at this. And that trailer conversion looks interesting. So I'm going to try to open this up like I did with the last suggestion. So we'll do go here. And okay. Well, that's not working for us. There we go. That's still not looking right. Okay, so he's using a system of, they look like snaps, but let's see if we can tell here. Oh, I see. Okay, so he's putting grommets. There's grommets on the awning itself, on the material. And then let's see how does he do that? Oh, I see. Okay, well that's an interesting way of doing that. Yeah. So it's a hook. It's a magnetic hook that it looks like a magnetic hook that is let me turn this down here. Okay, so it looks like it's a magnetic hook um, that he is then connecting the tarp to. I think that's a really good way of doing that. I've never seen that product before. I don't know if it's a product or if it's something that he just came up on his own to do, but definitely worth looking into, especially for the idea of using a skirt. Sorry about the video loop feedback there. I will figure out how better to do that in the future. I promise. So I don't know. Has anybody else done anything like that? Has anybody worked on a similar project? Oh, by the way, I am right now subscribing to Krakatube, the Kraka 069. That was the YouTuber there that has that project of the it's the enclosed trailer conversion project. So he just got us as a new subscriber, thanks to you, Elemental. And definitely I'll check it out later on tonight. How many just a check-in, anybody does anybody here have a Skoolie? How many of you actually have your own school bus conversion in the works, meaning you already have it, you already own it, or something that you are, or tell me the status. Are you looking to buy? Are you just interested in the lifestyle? Where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself actually living in a Skoolie? Do you see it more as a vacation thing, where, you know, a weekender, weekend warrior project type of thing? Okay, Laura is dreaming about this. This is good. Mike, could you talk a little bit about what kind of system for mobile Wi-Fi and transmission you have? Mobile phone, TV, radio, etc. Okay. The Wi-Fi situation is really interesting. If you drive across the country, you will, and you get away from the interstate, you will find that the national coverage that almost every cell phone company boasts is largely non-existent away from the interstates. So you need the way to approach the Wi-Fi situation is to have a multi-layered approach, right? So Katy has AT&T, I have T-Mobile, so we have two separate systems, two separate cell phone companies, and so we're using different networks, right? So when one doesn't work, usually the other one works. So for most things, like if we're posting on YouTube or Instagram or something like that, a cell phone connection is fine, but certainly not good enough often to, if we want to binge watch some Netflix, or if you want to upload videos. Definitely it's almost impossible to upload a 20-minute video on the T-Mobile service. And on Verizon, unfortunately, although they have the speed and the bandwidth, the cost of doing so can be sort of prohibitive. And so even with an unlimited plan, it can very quickly take you. So it's very important to be able to switch to a Wi-Fi system whenever we can, and we do that. We've looked at the Wi-Fi Ranger. Now the Wi-Fi Ranger, and I did a review of the Wi-Fi Ranger based on what I have experienced with it through other people, meaning I know people who have it and we have used it and it's great. But the Wi-Fi Ranger, if you don't know, it's a Wi-Fi booster. So from your bus, you can pick up a Wi-Fi signal that's within a certain radius, and bring that. So you could park. Let's say you could park a few blocks away from a McDonald's and pick up the McDonald's Wi-Fi and get it, and that's great. And unfortunately, that's only great if you're close to a place that it's broadcasting a Wi-Fi signal, like Starbucks or McDonald's or anything like that. If you're not close to any place like that, there really are no options. Satellite Wi-Fi through satellite at any usable rate is thousands of dollars per month. Not just the installation of the hardware, the dish and so forth, which could be anywhere between $600 to $1,500, but then the monthly service charges that come with it. At the very minimum, maybe they start at $400, but you're not going to be able to watch Netflix or YouTube or anything like that at that level of service. And so once you move up from there, especially if you're trying to do what we do and you're uploading content onto the internet, the satellite Wi-Fi turns into a $4,000 or $5,000 investment per month. And at that point, you know, that's a different lifestyle. That's just ridiculously expensive. So the best way to get Wi-Fi is to have as many different ways as possible. If you have the Wi-Fi Ranger as your Wi-Fi antenna pulling in, that's great. We have an ASUS antenna. It's I think I can pull up the actual name of it. It's an ASUS USB AC56 dual band USB adapter antenna. Whew. So our ASUS adapter does great if we are within maybe 200 yards of a Wi-Fi signal. So within 200 yards of a local library or something like that, we can pick up their Wi-Fi. Right now I'm picking up the Wi-Fi with permission from a private home that is maybe 100 feet from the bus at the moment, and so it works just fine. But basically you need to have a multi-layered Wi-Fi strategy, internet strategy. Try you know, you must have cell phone, you must have internet, a Wi-Fi antenna, and you could do a hotspot. We do have a Verizon hotspot that we also use whenever the cell phone signal and or the other signals are not working, meaning we'll have the hotspot itself, which is a Verizon Jetpack that we use, and the Verizon Jetpack, it's its own account, so we don't run the risk of using up all of our data and all of our minutes using our cell phone plans. We have the hotspot has X amount of money already deposited into the account for that purpose, and if we happen to go over the limit, well, we go over the limit and that's it. It doesn't affect our cell phone service or anything like that. So keeping those separate and having and making use of free Wi-Fi signals as much as possible is crucial, in my opinion, and that's how we get it done. As far as television, antenna is the best way. If we have free Wi-Fi, we can usually get a Netflix connection, but in terms of internet, it's a big part of how we make money and how we are able to stay connected and on the road so often. So it's very important to figure out what you're going to do, especially if you're thinking about doing something like this as a retirement project. If you're thinking about making money on the road as a sort of a digital nomad, you really need to figure out what your strategy will be to stay connected on the internet, and that means that you have to consider all of the possible ways of getting internet as ways that you will have to tap into one way or another. We have another question from Laura. How are you heating your bus? Well, first of all, we stick mostly to the south, so we will find out how bad things get when we go up to New York and Canada later this year. But we were up in Texas this past winter, and in Texas we had a run of 20-degree weather for a couple of weeks, and you know, down at 20 degrees, that's the point where you know you can't escape the cold, right? You have to do something. 50 degrees, 40 degrees, you know, we can manage with a small heater, space heater, and so forth. It got so cold, however, this past winter, and Katy had taken Finn, our dog, to Florida. I was in North Texas, and it got so cold that one night I literally emptied out the entire closet, laid it on top of the bed, and then just crawled under the pile of clothes just to create this heating bubble around me, this you know, personal insulation around my body, because I could not get the bus to heat up. And part of the problem was that we had managed to get 2 different heaters, very good ceramic heaters on their own, perfect, but they would stay on for maybe about an hour, and at some point I think the cycle of the heaters would line up somehow, and eventually they would both kick on at the same exact time and inevitably trip the breaker. So we kept tripping the breaker that we were connected to. This is the RV trailer park breaker. No, I shouldn't call it a trailer park, it's an RV park. It was actually a KOA where we were staying, but we were kept tripping it because the heaters were pulling so much electricity, and so ultimately I had to crawl into a mountain of clothing in order to heat myself through the night and live through 20-degree temperatures. So that was very uncomfortable, but really our primary strategy is we're staying in the south. We do have new heaters, and we have the ACs now. If we can manage to insulate the floor, and we might do the skirt suggestion from Elemental, any of those things might help. And so as we get closer to December, November and December, we'll figure out exactly what we're going to do. Joy Mitra, hey Mike, love your channel, been watching for months now. You guys put really good stuff. Big love from Dubai. Oh well, welcome, and hello from Florida. So I'm wondering, is there such a thing as a Skoolie community in Dubai? That'd be interesting. Elemental says, buy a couple of 0-degree sleeping bags if you can manage to find a place to store them. Actually, you know, we do have our camping storage. Now that we have our new bed set up, that might actually work. Of course, the idea would be not to have to sleep in really good sleeping bags throughout the winter. But we'll see. We'll see how it works out. But we'll see if it's cheaper to have, you know, really good sleeping bags, or if it's cheaper to insulate the bus. Whichever is cheaper is probably the road we will be taking. Excuse me. So we'll see what happens. Again, if any of you out there have your own channels, let me know, and I'd be happy to plug it and show other people your channel. Let's see. Electric heating blanket. You know, we got one and it works. The electric heating blanket works great. However, one of the things that, if you don't have a Skoolie or a tiny home setup or anything like that, one of the things that you learn very quickly is how much power, how much electricity anything with a heating element takes, right? So small heaters, your coffee pot, your stove burners, anything that has any kind of heating element, or if you're converting electricity to heat, it uses a ridiculous amount of electricity to do so, and you will not notice it until you have everything running in your in your bus. And then, you know, every light could be on, the computers are on, the radio is on, you have your, you have stuff on the TV, you know, and then you decide to make a cup of tea and you turn on the electric kettle, or you decide that you want a cup of coffee, and suddenly that cup of coffee will draw 1800 watts in an instant. It'll just destroy your electricity consumption. Multiple heaters will do so. We just recently we were running the stove and the toaster oven and the coffee maker all at the same time. Lasted maybe 15 minutes, and then everything tripped off, and that was it. On the other hand, I could have 3 monitors, 4 computers running, every light on the bus on, and nothing gets tripped. So diesel heater, small, and put out a lot of heat, uses a gallon a day. Diesel heaters are a good idea. We do have a diesel generator also, by the way, and so I have looked into diesel heaters. The only reason I haven't, again, heating the bus has been a challenge, but because we stick to the south, it hasn't been that big of a challenge, right? So usually when it is cold, when it's that time of year, it's only cold at night. You know, during the day we can usually survive, and you know, it's rarely below freezing, even in the worst of winter. But when you do get the worst of winter, you will feel it, and maybe at that point a diesel heater is definitely the way to go. Have you thought about installing a tiny house wood stove? We have, again, that comes down to how much would we use a wood stove. So living in the south, it would not get used. If after, you know, once we do our trip to Canada and all that, if we decide that we want to stay up there for longer, if we want to stay an entire year, and not even Canada, just the Midwest, if we were to stay, say, I would say anywhere, you know, above the Mason-Dixon line or something, we would definitely probably get a wood-burning stove. I think most of the projects that I've seen with wood-burning stoves, first of all, they look great. Second of all, I love the smell of a wood-burning stove, and thirdly, they work. That radiant heat flowing through the bus, it actually does a really good job, and it does it much more efficiently than, in terms of electricity and cost. It does it better than an electric heater. But again, it's something that we would only use, for 1 week out of the year, maybe in Florida, maybe 2 weeks out of the year in Texas. So it's not worth the investment for us, but definitely something anybody else in a northern latitude should definitely look at. See, there's no such thing around here in Dubai. He's talking about the Skoolie community, but I personally am very much attracted to nomadic lifestyle. I would love to come down to the US and do a trip in a converted bus or RV. That's a great idea, and obviously the easier way is to do with an RV. I would not do what I've seen some people do, which is come to the US, buy a bus, and then go through the process of converting it. I wouldn't do that. But I think a cross-country trip is a great idea. If you've never been to the United States, if you're coming from whether that's from Southeast Asia, the Middle East, from Latin America, Europe, or whatever, the United States is so different from state to state, city to city, from coast to coast, that you cannot, you cannot appreciate everything by just being to one city, one place. I know so many people who come here to Florida and they go to Disney and they stay in a Disney hotel and they camp, or they do all their shopping and everything in Disney property, and then they go back and get on a plane and they fly back to wherever they came from, and then they say, yeah, I've been to the United States. And it's like, no, you've been to Disney. You've been to this little corner. And it's the same way with everywhere around the world. I cannot say I've been to France. I've been to Paris. I lived in Paris for 5 months. I did not see much else outside of Paris. I've been to England and Ireland, but I've seen Dublin, but I can't say I've seen Ireland, for example. And so definitely, if you're out there and you're not from the US and you're coming to the US, I highly recommend that you buy or you rent yourself an RV and just travel, because most Americans won't even do it. I don't think most Americans travel enough across the country, and they should. It's a beautiful country, and there's a reason why, Katy and I have chosen this lifestyle. It's just every day there's something new, and the people you meet and the places, the things you see, and so much of it you can't capture on a camera. You can't, there's stories and things that you just can't tell people and say, hey, I've seen the Milky Way in the middle of the desert, and there's no way to convey that to them, what that means. Or driving through Death Valley and then 24 hours later you're driving through the plains of Kansas or something. It's an amazing way to get to know the country. Highly recommend doing a great trip around the U.S. I get cheaper to pay for hotel for a night or two than to add a heater. That's true. It's just, when it comes to, I don't know if it's cheaper, but it's definitely, in terms of space, it's definitely something that you have to really think about, especially for something as big as a wood stove that would require a chimney out the top of the bus. That would certainly require, I'd have to justify it with multiple use cases, more than just making marshmallows every now and then or something. And there's also another issue with this. You mentioned cheaper to pay for a hotel a night or two. During the summertime, right? So we've been in over 100-degree weather in Texas, where inside the bus temperatures are reaching 99 degrees, and outside the bus we're at 105 and 110. And truthfully, we have to leave the bus. We have to take Finn with us, and so we've gone to the mall. We've gone for a drive to just drive around, just to get airflow. We have gone to the movies. We have also put Finn in a knowing that if we can't protect Finn in the bus from the elements, we'll put him in a kennel for a night or two, just to make sure that it's not too cold or too hot inside the bus, if that's what we need to do. But it's definitely something that you have to balance out. Do you want to cut a hole in the roof for something that's only going to work once or twice a year, or do you not? So bus insurance, how are you registered? We are registered as a motor home, okay? Not as a mobile home, right? Let's make sure that distinction is made. A mobile home, right, is a house on sticks that may or may not move. A motor home is something that is not in any way permanently connected to the grid, right? That's the definition here in Florida. A motor home has to either be pulled by a trailer, as a trailer, or have an engine on it, and it must have it must not be in any way, shape, or form permanently attached to where it's at, right? It cannot have a a foundation or anything attached to it. So making that distinction clear, because it is confusing in the Florida law. So you want to look at motorhomes, and then the motorhome itself, because a school bus is not a motorhome, you have to change the title. The title has to say that you are a motorhome, and to change the title you need to do an affidavit basically stating that you have converted the bus into a motorhome, and that you want the title to reflect that. So insurance usually comes first, right? In the state of Florida. I'm not sure if that's the case everywhere, but in the state of Florida, you must get insurance first. How do you get insurance? You must have insurance from somebody, you know, that is okay with a bus conversion. And as we found out in Florida, at least, that is not any of the name brand insurance companies out there. Geico, Allstate, State Farm, etc. None of them would insure us. Only National General agreed to insure the bus. And National General, we pay something like $40-something a month for the insurance. And once we had the insurance, then we could get the bus registered, have the title changed, and you know, we got our tag with it, got our license plate. Ultimately, it wasn't that difficult once we knew what we had to do. Figuring out who we needed to talk to and what we actually needed to do was harder. Every time we called the Department of Motor Vehicles, it seemed like we were the first persons ever to call them about a custom motorhome schoolie conversion type of project, because they never knew what advice to give us. Or it was contradictory advice, or they would say, well, you have to collect all your papers and show us all the receipts of the conversion. Then they would tell us, no, we don't look at that, we just need pictures. Then they would say, well, we don't need pictures. And ultimately they didn't ask for any of that. They just wanted an affidavit, a sheet of paper notarized, saying that we had done this change, and that change and that we were requesting that change to be approved from a school bus to a motorhome. And that was it. And proof of insurance, which we had already gotten from National General. And so, you know, literally that was it. It took longer to figure out what it was that we had to do. It took months, at least 4 months, I think, of phone calls. But once we got a definitive, give us an affidavit, bring it to the office, it literally, we were done within a week. It was just the problem was that nobody knew what the advice should be. Nobody knew what the process was, and nobody wanted to be wrong, right? So it took a while to figure out to make enough phone calls to get to the right person who knew what they were talking about. And this is all calling government offices, but it worked out. Big Sky PC, hello, love your channel and content. Have had a major problems. Your bus with the engine, etc. Ever broken down? I have broken down. We talked about earlier about a breakdown in New Mexico last year, very early after we started driving through the country. But we haven't had any major problems. We do have a leak. We have an oil leak right now, and we need to get that fixed. But the problem that we have, and I think some of you might run into this, is that it's very hard to find someone willing to work on the bus. We have taken the bus even to, this is a 1996 International 3800. We've taken the bus to an international dealership, and they talked us out of it. They literally told us, you know, it's going to take too long. They would have to order the parts. We would be better going somewhere else. I mean, we were there for at least half an hour, and in the end, they just didn't want to work on it. But still, the best way to deal with any major problems is to get in touch with the manufacturer. If you have an international, find an international dealership or service center. If you have one made by Freightliner, find a Freightliner service center. If you have one made by Ford, etc. Find the people who typically work on big vehicles like these, and you will find the right people. However, many of the reasons why school buses go for sale, many of the reasons why you find, 20 or 30 school buses suddenly flooding the internet, is because sometimes parts are no longer being made. So one issue is the end of life, right? What they call the point in time in which the manufacturer has decided they're no longer going to support your product, that the product that you have in your hand. So in the case of International, we have a bus for which they haven't made parts for in roughly 15 years. And so for the last 15 years, it's mostly third-party vendors who make the parts for our bus. And so it's not International who's doing it. They don't really know what parts are necessary sometimes. And that's the problem. The biggest problem is not the problems that the bus may have, which we haven't had transmission problems. We haven't had anything major. But it's just finding somebody willing to do the work, somebody who knows what they're doing with the buses. And James Dukes says, you mentioned staying at KOAs. Is that expensive, or do they give monthly rates? They do give monthly rates, right? So what you want to ask for if you're thinking about doing a KOA, talk to them about extended stays, right? So think of a KOA more like a hotel rather than anything else. So you will sign a piece of paper which is not a lease, and they will specifically tell you for legal reasons this is not a lease. In other words, you are not a tenant of the park. You are essentially a guest of the park in the same way that you would be a guest at a hotel. And so you are treated, the relationship between you and the KOA is analogous to that of staying at a hotel, without all the room service, of course. But yeah, they will give you a great rate. We were staying at a fairly expensive KOA for a while because it was close to the Cowboy Stadium, right? So it was near Arlington, Texas, and we were the closest. We were at the closest KOA to the Cowboy Stadium. So this was a heavy traffic, touristy sort of KOA, and we were paying $575 a month for a medium range spot. So you can, some of the cheaper spots, which were they were cheaper not because they were worse or bad in any way. They were just less expensive because they were back-in spots instead of pull-through spots. But there were no back-in spots when we moved into the KOA, and so we got a pull-through spot, which is better for getting around and moving the bus and so forth. But it was $50 more expensive a month, so we ended up paying $575 a month at the KOA, and we stayed there for I think maybe 10 months or so. I mean, we came and went, but we used it as our hub, as our central hub from which to go out and come back to. Just because it's nice to have sort of a home spot that you can always go to and recoup. So yeah, long-term extended stay, the discount at high peak of the season was easily at $500, $575. It was 30. I mean, it was a 70% discount, I think, easily for considering that some nights it was $150 per night at the parks. Sometimes they went down to around $60 a night. So when you do the math, the long-term stay works out really well. Also, they do have a they do have a rewards program. It's the KOA rewards, I think, and I think you pay $30 for the year, and you get a card, and then that card earns you points, and that gives you a 20% discount on your stay, and that includes monthly rates. So you know, the KOA has it's a pretty good deal for the KOA. Yeah, if you're trying to post a link for your channel, the chat really doesn't allow it. I don't know what the best way to do that would be. And Elemental says you might want to check the Technomadia YouTube channel. Technomadia, they've been at this for a long time. We really like their channel. They have videos about various service centers that specialize in working on buses, and their bus is much older than yours. Yes, Technomadia has, and they've moved on. Well, they still have the bus, but now they're doing a boating thing. They got themselves a boat, and it's a great channel. So check out Technomadia. We are subscribers to their channel. And Technomadia, the best content on there is their digital Wi-Fi internet testing that they have done over the years, and they figured out a lot of things already. I mean, I think they've been on the road for over a decade easily, and lots of information on their channel. They have a transit bus. I believe it's an old, I don't know if it was a Mears coach or if it was a Greyhound bus or something along those lines, but it's an old transit bus that they converted. And I don't think they do much in the way of how-tos, but they are great for resources. So definitely Technomadia should be, you know, required watching for anybody looking into a schoolie lifestyle. Although theirs is not a school bus, of course. But I'll look for that one about the service centers. I think that would definitely be interesting to find an actual mechanic shop or service center that works on buses. I think that would be great to find. We're coming up to an hour and 36 minutes by my clock. I want to thank all of you. I want to ask anyone here if they have a shout out for a channel or anything else that they want to drop into the chat. And Laura, if you want to find Luna Skoolies RV, I mean, that is the name of her channel. You can just Google Luna Skoolie RV. That's how I found it, and you will find her channel. Definitely for those who came in late, we looked at her channel, we looked at her project. Great woodwork happening in that project. Take a look, subscribe to it, support Luna Skoolies RV. And by the way, once again, I've tried to do this every week, maybe. We'll see how everybody likes it. And I hope I try to answer, I hope I answered everybody's questions. Let me know how you feel about this, what I could do. I'll learn how to use this software for streaming. You know, I'll do better next time. But thank you all for checking it out and tuning in, and have a great rest of your Sunday, right? Wherever you are. Have a good one, guys.